methods that you saw up here when Mike and Veridiana came up to help me was that they came up and they presented something to the class. They were helping me teach. And so there are 4 different categories that I broke this into when I was looking at the lessons that I've done with my students. The students presenting individual work. When they presented individual work, they would come up after, at the end of a lesson and show something that they had done. And also the math story problems, we did an activity where students acted out different math word problems. And so they had the opportunity to kind of live the math word problems, and then later when they created their own, they could demonstrate understanding through that. What I'm going to talk about today, though, are the spontaneous oral readings and the role plays. So in regards to spontaneous oral readings, Athanasius came up with this term, and she called it that, or she called things, it was performing by reading or acting out a story, is what she termed spontaneous oral readings. And so what my students did is we started out by, first I read them this story called Hot Pot Soup, and then we read it all together as a class, and they read it with a partner, and they read it with them just themselves. And we discussed both content aspects of the story, who was in the story, what were their goals, what were important parts of the story, as well as more grammatical aspects of the story. What is an exclamation point? What does it mean? How does your voice change when you see one of those? So we discussed those ahead of time before participating in the students acting out and reading out loud the story, so that all the students, regardless of their predetermined reading levels, could feel confident and want to participate in this. When we participated in this, and students coming up and reading parts of the story, 5 out of 19 of the students in this grouping of students recalled having participated in this activity. And that's pretty impressive because all I said to them to ask the question was, can you tell me of a time when you came up to the front of the room with me to help me teach something? And so 5 of them recalled this story. And this kind of goes along with what Sweet found, in that students had a higher rate of recall and comprehension after following participation in oral reading or a dramatic enactment of some type. So the fact that my students remembered goes along with that. And also, all students, even those who typically don't volunteer to participate in activities, did participate in this. All of my students at some point in the couple of days that we did this activity came up to the front and helped read a part of the story. Additionally, when we were reading the story, as you can see here, most of the students really were following along. They were either watching their peers who were presenting, or they were following along in the books, reading along with themselves. So that suggests that they really were interested in this activity and attuned to what was going on around them. And I contrast this activity to a story we read. It was called To Be a Kid, and it was a really interesting story about what it means to be a kid in different countries throughout the world. And it had really descriptive photographs of kids doing different things that kids always do, playing soccer, playing with friends. And none of the kids remembered this story, even though it was also a multi-day activity. And I think that the reason for that is because the students, when we were participating in the spontaneous oral reading, were really given the opportunity to own the story. They came up and they read it to their classmates, and they felt an ownership, and this helped them to remember the story, to have the ability to recall it later. One of the other help me teach things that we did was participating in different role plays for various reasons. So this is an example of a role play we did on sharing. The students in this particular grouping of kids have been having a really tough time sharing crayons at their desks, taking turns about being first in line, and different things like that. So I decided we needed a lesson on sharing. And I wanted to model appropriate ways and give students the appropriate language and words to use to say, okay, yes, I will share this with you, or no, not right now. A little while then, you can have it. So I wanted to give them the vocabulary and a model that they could use to look back on. So the kids participated in these various different role play activities. Again, all the students participated at some point during this activity. And the role plays we did were things that the kids experience all the time, every day, sharing materials at their desks, taking turns being first in line, taking turns on the playground, or getting a drink of water. And so they were really able to connect these role plays to their real life experiences and their real life experiences in the past, and then they're able to draw back on them for the future. But one specific role play that we did involved a girl, I'm going to call her Elizabeth, and she had consistently a really, really tough time sharing, especially sharing crayons at the desks, because the kids all shared crayons. And so when she came up with another student to participate in her role play, I gave her the scenario of, all right, your partner, the other person has a crayon, and I would like you to ask her for the crayon. And so Elizabeth asked for the crayon. She did it very nicely and appropriately, and it was a nice role play. And then later, when we were doing what I call the C-work portion, the kids were asked to write about something they can share and draw a picture of something they can share. And although I'm not sure entirely what it is that she wrote or what she drew, the fact that she wrote and drew something is really impressive because like she was working really conscientiously, really hard on this, and the student oftentimes has a really hard time doing the seat work portion, following directions, or settling down with her crayons long enough to do the activity. So the fact that she participated in the role play and then did this, I was very proud of the student. And then later, as the kids were getting ready to leave, she gave me a crayon. She put it in my hand, and she came up to me and she said, "Teacher, can I use your blue crayon?" And so the fact that later, this was maybe about half an hour after her role play had happened, the fact that she was able to generalize that role play to other situations shows that she had understood it and that she was able to remember it at this later time. And also the fact that she was able to initiate a sharing situation is really important because it shows that she wasn't just listening, but she was really understanding what it was that we were talking about and what it means to share. So to come to some conclusions about the effectiveness and use of Help Me Teach, students were able to recall a lot more due to their active participation and these different ways of helping me teach. The participating in either the role plays or the acting out of the story. And also students were able to use multiple forms of meaning making. So they were able to not just draw a picture or write some words, but they were able to demonstrate their understanding through speaking and through moving around and through showing through actual situations that they might encounter that they do understand this concept. And additionally, students were able to connect what they had done to lived experiences. Like I said, they were able to remember a time that they'd either successfully or unsuccessfully shared something with someone else, and then they're able to look forward to a time when they might share with someone else again and draw upon these experiences to work with them those times.